Right now, this second, an enormous military operation is unfolding, and most people have no idea how serious it just became. The United States has effectively tightened a chokehold around one of the most critical energy regions on Earth. Warships are everywhere, trade routes are freezing, and a silent countdown has already begun. This is no longer a warning. This is escalation. Across the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman, dozens of U.S. warships are now deployed, backed by tens of thousands of sailors and Marines. A second aircraft carrier is racing across the globe to join the operation, taking a longer route just to avoid potential missile threats. That alone tells you how dangerous this situation has become. At the Pentagon, a message was delivered that left no room for interpretation. Any vessel attempting to approach restricted zones risks being stopped by force if necessary. This isn't posturing, it's enforcement. But buried beneath the military headlines is a far more critical detail, one that could determine how this entire conflict unfolds. Iran is running out of time. According to multiple defense assessments, the country has a limited window before its oil storage capacity reaches its limit. Once that happens, production can't simply continue as normal. Wells may need to be shut down, and in some cases, restarting them may not fully restore output. This isn't just economic pressure, it's structural damage. In other words, the pressure being applied right now doesn't just hit revenue, it threatens long-term production itself. What we've witnessed over the past few days has fundamentally changed the dynamics of this conflict. The United States hasn't blocked the entire Strait of Hormuz, but it has effectively cut off access to Iran's ports. That distinction matters. Ships moving to other Gulf nations can still pass. Ships linked to Iran cannot. Within a very short time, a massive portion of Iran's sea-based trade has been brought to a standstill. Vessels have already turned back. Routes have been disrupted, and the economic impact is building rapidly. Now consider this alongside the ticking clock on oil storage. The pressure isn't theoretical, it's immediate, measurable, and intensifying. But Iran is not standing still. The next phase of this situation will depend on how both sides respond in the coming days, because while one side is applying pressure, the other is preparing its countermoves, and that's where things become far more unpredictable. The U.S. military presence in the region has surged to extraordinary levels. Carrier strike groups, amphibious units, advanced destroyers, and mine-clearing systems are all now concentrated in a single theater. This is not a routine deployment, it's a strategic concentration of power rarely seen in modern conflicts. And yet maintaining this level of control comes at a cost. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most complex and dangerous waterways in the world. Narrow shipping lanes, heavily fortified coastlines, and unconventional naval tactics make it incredibly difficult to fully secure. Even with overwhelming force, the risk never drops to zero. Before tensions escalated, hundreds of ships moved through these waters daily. Now traffic has slowed dramatically. Tankers are waiting. Cargo is delayed. Energy markets are feeling the strain, and this is where the situation expands beyond the battlefield. Financial markets are reacting, but not always in the way you'd expect. While some indicators suggest confidence, the physical energy market is telling a very different story. Prices remain elevated. Supply chains are strained, and global forecasts are being revised downward. Institutions are beginning to acknowledge the scale of the disruption. Growth expectations are being cut, warnings about potential recession risks are increasing, and everything now hinges on whether this situation stabilizes or spirals further. At the same time, diplomatic efforts are unfolding behind the scenes. There are signals that negotiations could move forward. There are also signs of deep disagreement on critical issues. Both optimism and tension exist simultaneously, and that's what makes this moment so volatile. Because here's the reality. Pressure creates leverage, but only if it leads somewhere. If a path forward emerges, this situation could de-escalate quickly. Energy flows could stabilize, markets could recover, the crisis could ease. But if that path collapses, the consequences could escalate just as fast. We're now looking at a scenario where multiple critical choke points, global energy supply, and major economic systems are all interconnected. Any disruption doesn't stay local, it spreads. And there's another layer most people aren't even paying attention to. While the United States focuses heavily on this region, other global powers are watching closely and adjusting their own positions. Military resources are finite, strategic focus matters, and shifts in one region can create openings in another. This is no longer just a regional issue. It's part of a much larger global realignment. So here's what it comes down to. A massive military operation is underway. The pressure on Iran is real and increasing. A critical timeline is in motion, but the outcome is still uncertain. Push too far and the situation doesn't stabilize it. Breaks. And if that happens, the impact won't stay contained. It will reach energy prices, global markets, and everyday life around the world. The next few days are critical. Watch the negotiations, watch the movement of ships, and most importantly, watch the clock, because everything now depends on what happens next.